Ever wondered how a small island with no natural resources managed to become one of the richest countries in the world? In this video, we'll take you through Singapore's remarkable journey from its tough beginnings to its rise as a global powerhouse. We'll discuss key moments like its strategic location as a trading hub, the visionary leadership of Lee Kuan Yew, and how smart policies and technology propel the nation forward. Let's dive in. The beginning, a tough start. In 1965, Singapore became an independent nation. But this new independence wasn't something to celebrate. Why? Singapore back then was struggling. Imagine living in a place with no resources, high unemployment, and a population living in slums. That's how things were in Singapore right after independence. Two-thirds of the population lived in poor conditions, and violence was common. The island had no natural resources, and its neighbors were hostile. Singapore's new leader, Lee Kuan Yew, knew that this was a very bad situation. The country had no way to defend itself, and things seemed hopeless. But Lee Kuan Yew was a strong and smart leader, and he had a plan. Can you guess how he turned things around? He focused on making Singapore one of the most modern, business-friendly countries in the world. It wasn't easy, but his hard work and smart decisions eventually paid off. A trading hub, Singapore's perfect location. One of the first things Lee Kuan Yew did was look at Singapore's location. Even though it didn't have natural resources, it was perfectly positioned. Singapore sat right on the Strait of Malacca, a very important shipping route. This gave Singapore a huge advantage. It was in the middle of the world's busiest shipping lanes. So, what did Singapore do with this advantage? It turned itself into a trading hub, a place where goods from all over the world passed through. This move was genius. Singapore became one of the busiest ports in the world. Imagine all the ships carrying goods like tea, rubber, and tin from neighboring countries and beyond. This booming trade helped Singapore grow and survive, and it attracted people from around the world who wanted to make money. After the British East India Company set up a trading port in Singapore, the city became known for its vibrant trading community. But there was a problem. With all this business, there were also problems like gambling, violence, and even slavery. How did Singapore handle this? It had to clean up its image and build a better future. Overcoming challenges, a bumpy road ahead. By the time World War II came around, Singapore was in danger. In 1942, the Japanese Empire invaded and took control of Singapore. This was a huge blow for the city, and after 3 years of war, the city was left in ruins. After the war, Singapore had to rebuild from scratch. Slums and violence were everywhere, and unemployment was high. Would you think Singapore could ever recover from such devastation? It seemed impossible. Despite all of these challenges, Singapore didn't give up. Lee Kuan Yew and his leaders knew that they had to take action. They didn't have natural resources, so they had to build a strong economy in other ways. How did they do this? They focused on education, housing, and attracting international businesses to come and invest in Singapore. The master plan, building a modern economy. One of the most important decisions made by Lee Kuan Yew was investing in the people. He believed that the people of Singapore were the country's biggest asset. If you were in charge of a country with no resources, what would you do to help your people? Lee Kuan Yew built schools, created job opportunities, and made sure that people were healthy. This helped lift the population out of poverty and provided the workforce needed for a thriving economy. At the same time, Lee Kuan Yew encouraged foreign companies to come to Singapore. How did he make Singapore attractive to businesses? He created a business-friendly environment with low taxes and minimal regulations. For example, businesses could operate for 10 years without paying taxes, which made Singapore the perfect place to start or grow a business. The birth of modern Singapore. By the 1980s, Singapore was no longer just a trading port. It was becoming a global center for business and finance. But there was still one big challenge left: how to create jobs for everyone. With no natural resources, Singapore needed to focus on something else. What was that? Education. Lee Kuan Yew knew that education would unlock opportunities for Singaporeans and make the country even more attractive to global businesses. The government invested heavily in education, producing a highly skilled workforce that could compete in global markets. This idea worked. By the 1990s, Singapore had become a major financial center. It was attracting businesses and investments from around the world. The country started producing things like electronics, chemicals, and even oil products, becoming one of the largest producers of refined petroleum. Isn't it amazing how far Singapore had come from its humble beginnings? As businesses continued to thrive, the city-state also became known for its stable, efficient government and competitive economy. Smart policies, Singapore's secret to success. Lee Kuan Yew didn't just focus on building a strong economy, he also tackled corruption. Can you imagine a country where corruption is almost non-existent? Singapore became one of the least corrupt nations in the world. How did they do this? By paying their government officials very well. These high wages reduced the temptation for corruption. This, combined with Lee's strict laws, made Singapore a very stable place to do business. The government also maintained tight control over the country's growth, ensuring that policies were always in place to support business development. What do you think about Singapore's success? While it may seem like a success story, it didn't come without challenges. The government's strict policies made Singapore a one-party state, and freedoms like free speech were limited. Some people criticized this, but Lee Kuan Yew believed it was necessary to ensure the country's long-term prosperity. Does it make sense to you that the government focused on stability even at the cost of freedoms? The role of technology, moving into the future. Even with all these advances, Singapore wasn't done yet. The country knew it had to look to the future, especially with the rise of technology. In recent years, Singapore has become a leader in the tech industry. It's home to many high-tech companies and is constantly innovating. This is another reason why Singapore continues to thrive. It adapts and grows with the times. From smart city initiatives to advanced healthcare technology, Singapore's future-focused approach has ensured its continued success. Today, Singapore's economy is one of the strongest in the world. It has some of the highest levels of income and education, and its people enjoy a high standard of living. Singapore is the second easiest country to do business in, and it's a global leader in finance, trade, and technology. What do you think makes Singapore so successful? Is it the people, the location, or the smart leadership? Challenges ahead. Can Singapore keep it up? While Singapore is rich and successful now, it faces new challenges. For one, its population is aging, and there's growing pressure on the economy and government spending. Housing prices are rising, and some people feel that foreign workers are taking jobs from locals. How do you think Singapore will tackle these problems? The country is also facing the effects of climate change. With rising sea levels, Singapore is investing in ways to protect itself. But no matter what challenges lie ahead, Singapore's strong foundation gives it the tools to continue prospering. What do you think? Can Singapore keep growing, or will it face more struggles in the future? As Singapore continues to grow, it will rely on its leadership, its people, and its unique approach to problem-solving. The future looks bright for this small island nation, but only time will tell if it can continue to stay on top. What do you think will happen to Singapore in the next decade? Will it continue to lead the world in finance, tech, and business? If you enjoyed learning about how Singapore became one of the richest nations in the world, make sure to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating content. What other countries would you like to know more about? Let us know in the comments below.